here. There's no instruction book for this job. No one told us how to do this. And frankly, no one else does it around the world. I don't know, who are we actually representing? What do they think? How can we contact them? How can we ask them what they think? How do we then convince all these SMEs that they need an association, that they need someone to talk on their behalf, to speak on their behalf? Honestly, the ICT sector wasn't a thing at the moment. What is really tough is the fact that you will have competitors, and most of your competitors will be organizations which have much more money than you, and which are actually paid by your worst enemies, by mainly the big tech companies, to claim they speak on behalf of SMEs. They pay 10, 20, 50,000 euros per year, even 100,000 euros per year to an association. It's not a problem. They will see the value of that money, okay? Each company will see the value of that money. An SME will not even give you €1. We have tried to reinvent the business of an association. And what we said, okay, let's try to become an internet company. This is a particular thing we have, which differentiates us from many other organizations, which is...
Greetings, fellow interneted people. My name is Andrei Doda, and today's guest is Sebastiano. Hello, Sebastiano.
Hello, Andrei.
Nice
Very
to
nice
meet
to see
you.
you.
Thank you for being here. And Sebastiano, can you first tell us a little bit about yourself? What's your story?
It's certainly interesting. Well, I come from Italy, and at some point I decided to move to Brussels because I wanted to see Europe, essentially. And I was in Belgium for a couple of years. I had a background as an industrial engineer. And I decided I should start working in the EU affairs jobs, in the EU affairs bubble, because I was living in Brussels and I loved the city, I loved the people. There is really a fantastic atmosphere, really, of Europe, of making of Europe, and I wanted to be part of it. I said, okay, I should try, even though I don't have a background in political science or law or anything like that. I can do it because I think, I believe in the power of human beings, in the power of myself. And so I tried, and I managed to get a job in the EU affairs bubble, and things developed. And then a few years later, I created my own organization, the European Digital SME Alliance. And here we are.
Well. And you noted a little bit about your organization, Digital SME Alliance. Can you maybe tell us a little bit what that actually is? What is this organization and what is its history?
The European Digital SME Alliance. I mean, the name says it more or less all. It's a European organization. It's legally speaking, it's a non-for-profit association that connects digital SMEs from the continent. So, as I said, it's a international non-for-profit association established under Belgian law. And members are national associations or national clusters of tech digital SMEs, so small and medium-sized enterprises, in several European member countries and also a bit beyond. So there are quite a few neighboring countries which joined us recently. So we are in around 30 countries nowadays, and through these national members, we represent something like 45,000 enterprises across the continent.
Wow, that's a lot. But you said something there that I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. You said that it's a not-for-profit organization registered in Belgium, correct?
Correct.
So that implies that it is not a European institution per se.
It is not a European institution. It is a private organization. However, it does work with the European institutions. This is the statutory purpose, mandate, if you like. When it was created, we thought, okay, this is an organization which should be the interface for the European institutions to talk with one voice with a very large community of SMEs. Of course, not every SME can afford to come to Brussels and do the
Obviously.
lobbying and talk to the politicians and to the officers and so on and so forth. And somebody needs to unite their voices, is to consult them, and they need to be able to speak with one voice. And that's what we wanted to be, and that's what we are trying to do right now.
That is actually a really good idea, which the way you put it is perfect, because yeah, you cannot, as a digital SME, you cannot take the time to actually do that every single day or every single month, at the very least. But I have to wonder, given that context, why digital SMEs? Why do you care about them, and what made you get into this field?
Well, okay, the history why this happened dates back to probably 2005,
Hmm.
2006, those years, maybe even seven. There was a point in time in Brussels, I was already here,
Mm-hmm.
where there was a big political debate. The topic was software patents. So,
Mm-hmm.
whether software should be patentable or not patentable. And at that point, there was a very, very big lobbying campaign run by Microsoft and probably other companies, but mainly Microsoft, who came to Brussels with a lot of people, a lot of lawyers, a lot of fake SMEs. They mount a big, big campaign, especially vis-a-vis the European Parliament, because they wanted to convince Europe that software should be patentable. That was the goal. And I myself came into that debate a little bit, although it was a bit marginal for me. I wasn't working for anything like this at the moment. I was working for another association representing SMEs, but it was not a tech
Mm-hmm.
digital
Mm-hmm.
SMEs. It was just SMEs of any sector. And they were like, okay, but what is this discussion? I honestly, the ICT sector wasn't a thing at the moment, especially in Europe. We didn't have any, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
we didn't have a clue, honestly, what this was. The association came to me and said, okay, Sebastiano, you're one of the youngest people here. You are the only one who understands a little bit about this digital thing. Can you help us a little bit? They did take a position, in fact, against the patentability of software because they started hearing from developers and others that this would be dramatic. And in the end, thanks to the position of that association and other voices, the parliament voted against the patentability of software. But that was the time when there was a realization
Mm-hmm.
that Europe needed to have someone, a voice, an organization to represent those guys, because those guys were not just developers here and there. They were companies. They had an economic interest. They were in a sector which was growing very
Mm-hmm.
fastly at the time, was maybe not so clear, and it all led to I think it was around 2008 when, with a bunch of people, we decided to create this organization. So that was a little bit the story, and then since 2008 things have developed. It's been a small project for a few years, and then probably it was back in 2018, 2017 when it started growing and becoming something more visible.
That is absolutely fascinating. And usually in the European space, at the very least, you wouldn't necessarily think about lobbying, because when you say lobbying, usually you think about the American kind. You think about the things that happen over the other side of the ocean. But I actually even experienced that myself. I was in 2021 in Slovenia at a SME forum. And there I actually met for the first time a representative from Amazon who was actually getting paid for the sole reason of lobbying. And that actually blew my mind. It does happen here in Europe. And that is a great cause that you are working on. And thank you for that. Appreciate that you both respect and protect the rights of those people. But maybe let's get a little bit into more of that. who are the people that you're actually helping? Who are the people that you're actually providing for? I'd imagine that when you design something your organization, when you design a solution or a product to offer them, I would imagine that you have a persona or an avatar in mind, that you have a representation of what they look like and what they do on a daily basis, on how big their company is. Can you maybe help us with just a little bit of a representation of the persona?
It's a good question, Andre, especially because I have a team of colleagues, and mostly they're young and they just
Mm-hmm.
joined maybe a year or a few months ago. And this is the type of question I get all the time, because Sebastiano, who are we actually representing? What do they think? How can we
Yes.
contact them? How can we ask them what they think about this? I say, okay, look, it's a bit difficult, first of all, because how can you talk to 45,000 companies? I mean, I don't even know myself. And secondly, we have to talk to them via national associations, which have their own
Yep.
diversities, their own culture, their own languages, their own complexities. And so there is a lot which you learn about this avatar, as you call it, about this persona. You learn in the years. I've
Mm-hmm.
learned myself at the beginning. I didn't know. They told me you have to represent the digital SMEs. I said, okay, well, what do they think? Nobody was telling me, especially because imagine you have a draft law,
Mm-hmm.
and the law is super technical, is legalistic. No one is going. The law is never going to say yes, you can do this software and you cannot do that software, or whatever. The law is going to be super abstract, and you ask a normal SME, they will not know. No one knows what will be the concept. You ask Microsoft or you ask Amazon, they will have lawyers, specialized lobbyist people, and they will know. They will find out
Yep.
because they're professionals and they have lived and worked all their life doing that specific thing, and they know what will be the consequences of a comma here or there, in maybe not tomorrow but in 10 years time for their own company.
Mm-hmm.
You ask this persona, this SME, they will not, they will have no clue. um, so understanding what their ideas are, what their interests are, is a very complex thing. And it took me years. It took me meeting and talking to a very large variety of people, of entrepreneurs, essentially, okay, tech
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurs from all over Europe, from all countries, and going into this conversation, talking to their associations as well, okay, because their associations have done a little bit this journey, to
Yep.
try to understand what will be their interest. And very often, frankly, also these associations would have worked also with the big guys, huh? Because sometimes the big guys try to be a member in that association, or they are a member in that association, and they have positions. And I myself have met a lot of these lobbyists from Amazon, Microsoft, and so on in
Mm-hmm.
Brussels.
Mm-hmm.
And I love to talk to them, because by talking to them, you understand the consequences of laws, text, which is completely abstract and non-understandable. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
by talking to them and understanding their narrative, their stories, you see what the consequences they predict the consequences will be for their businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And by understanding what businesses they have, their platforms and so on, then you can very often understand what will be the consequences on the SME. So it's super difficult to find out what will be the interest of this type of constituency. You have to talk to many experts. You have to talk to many people. Those are against, those who are in favor, and the entrepreneurs, of course. And by putting the dots together, uniting
Mm-hmm.
the dots, you try to visualize a puzzle that slowly comes across. Okay, but it's not an easy thing. There's no what I always tell my team here, there's no instruction book for this
Mm-hmm.
job. No one told us how to do this, and frankly no one else does it around the world. If I have to say, I've been looking for like-minded organizations all around the world, in the US, in Asia, in South America, in Africa, in Middle East, wherever. There is no other organization that does that. There's no history of representation of SMEs. There are, of course, chambers of commerce. There are SME associations, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
but they do services. They do, very concrete things.
Yep.
They have to pay taxes, or they give you, I don't know, information about trade, whatever. They give you concrete support. They don't give you the representation. So Europe has a bit of history of that.
Mm-hmm.
But trying to represent companies in this sector, I think this is really the first time someone does it. That's why I said in the beginning it's a very interesting job, because it's nothing that anyone else did before, and you have to learn every day,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to find out every day what the next thing will be. What will you say in the interview with Andre? What will you say when you talk to the politician? What will you say when a new proposed law will come out, and what will be your position? Who knows?
Hmm.
You have to do a lot of thinking, essentially.
Interesting, interesting, and definitely, but as far as my research has gone so far, I have not seen any such organization until now anywhere in the world. You are definitely right, and especially not at this scale. Again, we're talking about 45,000 SMEs. That's a lot. And in order to just ensure that everybody, well, at least the most relevant of voices are listened to, that takes a lot of energy. 45,000 SMEs, that is a lot. How does your organization attempt to collect and to make sure that you keep listening to the SMEs that you represent?
Well, yes, we have a few processes in
Mm-hmm.
place, and it is complex, but you can do it. Essentially, we have, first of all, we have national members. So we are asking the national members to do their own surveys, to their own consultations, to tell us what their opinions will be. These national members, as I said, are national associations, and so they have their own internal structures, so to
Yep.
say, to do that. But that will not be enough. That will not be enough, because very often in those organizations you won't have. It's going to be difficult to find someone who really focuses and understands the issues about European laws or
Exactly.
whatever, European policies and so on. Again, you don't have the Amazons in those memberships, so you will not find people with the knowledge, professionals paid to, dissect and digest draft European legislation. You won't have these people. So we have that level, and then we have another level, which is a number of working groups.
Mm-hmm.
Working groups are places populated by essentially experts, which are SMEs, people from associations, etc. SMEs themselves. We have sometimes in these groups up to, I don't know, 150, 200 people registered who participate in meetings. We regularly organize short meetings, online meetings with them to talk about specific topics, no? To talk about, okay, there is going to be, and we will invite someone from the European Commission, from the European Parliament, someone to present a project, a
Mm-hmm.
proposal for a new legislation, for instance. Okay, they will come up with a slide, with presentation. They will say, okay, we intend to do this, this, and that, and then we say, well, what do you think? And we have discussions with these people. These people are a bit more, educated than the average, so that these are people who, are prepared to understand about these topics. Some SMEs, I have to say, recently, they start being smarter. Okay, they start, those a bit grown up,
Mm-hmm.
companies, 50 people or more. They start sometimes hiring even professional lobbyists or lawyers, people who really understand laws. And so when you start having those clever people or educated people around the table, then you can have an informed conversation with them. Okay, and this
Mm-hmm.
is what we try to do in our working groups. So we have thematic working groups. So we have a working group on, I don't know, on cybersecurity and data. We have a working group on artificial intelligence, on blockchain. There are 10 of them on
Mm-hmm.
different topics, and we try each of the working group to have its own life, to be populated with good experts, uh, because thanks to these people we are able to form informed and valuable positions. Okay,
Yep. Yep.
because
Yep.
if you don't have a strong and well argued well-justified position. You cannot just say, yeah, SMEs want to pay less, or SMEs need less bureaucracy, or we need more funding for SMEs. Everyone can say that, right? It's very easy.
True.
But if you go to a government, to the European Commission or to your government, and say that, say, okay, tell me how to do it, because these things everyone can say, every politician can say those things, but how do you do that in practice? And when you will talk to the lobbyists of Amazon and Microsoft, they will tell you in detail, you have to change this comma in that specific law in article such and such. If you get to that level of granularity, then you can have an influence. If not, if you only do the claims, more money for SMEs, more projects, more whatever, everyone will say, okay, thank you very much, Sebastiano, this is very, very useful, but they will not do anything with it. You see, so this is where you become effective as a lobbying organization. When you are able to elaborate very concrete and sophisticated proposals, when you create your own narrative, when you convince people, when you change the minds, and that's not easy.
Absolutely, for certain, it is not easy, and especially even if you have representatives which already know what they're talking about, even if you have a group of 100, 150 people that meet and are already experts on the topic, that is still not easy to propose anything from a legislative point of view. So the work you do is absolutely relevant, it's absolutely important at the European level. But I just need to make sure that we're on the same page. Do you view your organization as a lobbying organization, or what do you feel like is the value you provide for the entrepreneur, for the digital SME? How do you aim to empower the people that you help?
Okay, I mean, the word lobbying isn't particularly popular. Okay,
Yeah.
perhaps you can use the word advocacy,
Mm.
okay, or representation,
Mm-hmm.
okay, because this is a bit nicer. But then, of course, if we talk to SMEs, and we will try to say, okay, now each of you 45,000 SMEs will pay me €1 or €10 to lobby for you, to represent you. I can tell you already, no one is going to give me anything, okay? Or or very few will. And in any case, the cost of transaction, the cost of me convincing every single entrepreneur to give me €1, I mean, there are millions of SMEs out there. If every SME will give me €1, we will be very rich. We will be the richest organization in Brussels. But the cost of transaction is too high.
Yeah.
If I just talk to one person to give me €1, this will cost me more than €1, right? So it doesn't make sense. So we have to sell a little bit the service, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And if we sell the service of representation, I learned that most SMEs will not be interested. Okay, they would say, no, it's not for me because others will do it, first of all, or because maybe, I don't know, I only see a few months or a year from now because I don't know where my business is going. Maybe I will sell, maybe I will go bankrupt, but I don't know. And so if you change the law, which will have impact in 3, 5, 10 years, who cares?
Mm-hmm.
Not my business. And most of them will not even understand that you can modify laws to favor one company or another.
Yep.
This is very important because those big guys, yes, they are very innovative, and no one contests that they have a lot of technology, but they have been very good at lobbying. They have been very good at making sure the US and the European government make very good laws for them. They are completely sometimes competing against SMEs, sometimes in a very unfair manner. Okay, this has to be very, very clear because they're better than lobbying. How do we then convince all these SMEs that they need an association, that they need someone to talk on their to speak on their behalf? Well, we need to empower them. We need to start offering services which are better understood. Okay, because the lobbying service is not understood. So we have to offer a larger variety of things. And one thing we offer, for instance, is the European funding. what we give SMEs is unique opportunities to access funding. We don't give them the calls which are publicly available and they can just Google and find. We give them opportunities which are not published. We put them in contact with other SMEs so that they can create a consortium and they can run for a European project. This no one else does. Okay, so we give them things that no one else can give. We can give only because we are in Brussels, and then we can talk to the institutions and propose new projects. Say, okay, we need you to fund this new project because if you do that, you will help not just one SME, but maybe a large variety, a large community of SMEs which want to invest in new technology. Let me give you a very simple example. Years ago, now everyone, I mean, it's an old technology now, radio frequency identification, the RFID, with the one used in IoT and so on. I remember like 15 years ago, no one was talking about it. Okay, it was, and especially it was not clear that you could use this in an SME. So we started going in a few conferences organized by the European Commission, saying, okay, look, we think RFID is a good technology because it can help SMEs do, in logistics, in many sectors, tracking products and so on. People say, oh, interesting. We never think about RFID could be interesting for SMEs. A year after, what happened? The commission, all of a sudden, they published a call for a project to showcase RFID technology in SMEs. And of course, we won the call, but the call was inspired by us. Okay, so we coordinated a project of a few million euro. I was the coordinator. It was called RFID ROI SME, Return on Investment SME, and we showcased the implementation of RFID in SMEs from 5 or 7 different sectors in 5 European countries. We shot videos, a lot of reports, and it was fantastic. It was the result of a lobbying activity on behalf of SMEs to help SMEs. So we got the money to do it, right? And so you have to create stories, you have to create a narrative like that. So you have to help SMEs with funding, and then we try to help SMEs with networking. We try to say, okay, we are a platform at European level, we are an umbrella at European level. And if you are an SME, you look for partners in another country, you look for a business to do business with someone else. You can use this network to find partners elsewhere. Okay, so this has nothing to do with lobbying, but it's a service that we can offer as a European association.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think you pointed out something especially interesting, especially for an organization that is your size. And you did expand into not only advocacy, but also other things. And I think this is a great transition towards talking about what is on your digital platform, the digital platform of Digital SME Alliance. Can you maybe help us better understand what are the different sections on your platform? What are the different things specifically that you offer? How do you categorize them?
I mean, we rightly so. We have tried to reinvent the business of an association.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
especially process-based association. And what we said, okay, let's try to become an internet company.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's try. First of all, let's try not to work only with a limited number of members. I said earlier we have the national members, so the national associations, and they are not infinite. There are
Yep.
about 30. Okay, so we can work with these guys only also on a one-to-one basis, also just by normal emails, the traditional ways,
Mm-hmm.
phone calls, whatever. But let's try to become a platform. Let's
Mm-hmm.
try to become an internet company. So let's try to scale up and work one to many,
Mm-hmm.
or not one to few, or one to one. And so we started opening up a membership scheme for SMEs themselves. Okay. And when you do that and you know that you have a potential audience of 45,000, you have to start thinking about how you do it, because of course you cannot work one to one. You have to work one to many.
Yep.
It has to be highly scalable. And so we said, okay, let's change completely the way we work. Let's become an internet company. Let's create a platform online, and let's let the interactions happen there, and this is of course, as you can imagine, it's a very difficult exercise when you have to change completely the way people work. And
Absolutely.
even now but I'm gonna send an email. You can send an email, yes, but you need to create a form online, so you let people fill it in and give you the data in a way that then
Mm-hmm.
you can extract and so on. So that now is in place, and it does work, and we start offering services now. The latest service we are offering via the platform is what we have called a very simple series of events, which is called Present Your Business, PYB. Present Your Business is a 1 hour event which happens every month on the same date, same hour. And Present Your Business means it's a networking opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
You go there, and there are going to be 4 or 5 uh, businesses which present themselves to other businesses. So you can just register online, either you are a presenter or you are the audience. If you want to meet other companies in the ICT sector,
Mm-hmm.
this is a very simple solution. It is scalable because it's always the same thing, and
Yeah.
it happens repeatedly. And once you do that internally, once you set it up, the work is done. Everything else is done essentially by the software, right? So this is an example of a simple, platformization, so to say, of the business that you will
Mm-hmm.
do. We took the inspiration from some association at national level, which told me they do something similar, not even online, they do it in person. And every month they
Well,
let their member companies meet each other. So, okay, let's do that the same way, but we do it internationally, we do it at European level, and we do it online, and we do it in a scalable way. So that's an example of how you can use technologies. I think nowadays.
and it's interesting the way you put that. You said that you are attempting to be more of an what were your words? Internet company. And I think that's the thing that really intrigues me as well, because whenever I go to your site, whenever I see your digital presence, I don't really feel like I'm listening to an NGO necessarily. I feel like I'm listening to the innovative spirit of a startup, rather, which is fantastic that you are doing that. And regarding your platform, if I may, just I was deeply intrigued in one aspect of your platform, namely the membership side. And more specifically, the fact that you offer two types of memberships. You have one for hubs, clusters, and associations, and you have another one for individual startups and research institutions. Can you maybe help us understand why are those different offerings and what each offering gives you?
Okay, let me correct you. The second option is membership for companies,
Yeah.
startups or SMEs. We don't really associate researchers,
Okay.
but the distinction is correct.
Mm-hmm.
We have the national associations, hubs, clusters on one hand. These are what we call the intermediaries, those who will
Yeah.
have themselves a community. Each of them will have a community of SMEs, and then the individual companies. And we offer, as I said, initially the alliance was created only by these guys, only by the national associations.
Yep.
But then we realized, okay, we will only have a limited amount of these guys, because first of all there are not infinite in Europe, or in the countries, whereas these guys are where we can grow. Okay, so the real SMEs. And so we started working from here as a traditional business, if you like,
Mm-hmm.
to this level, the level of the 45,000 or the millions potentially of SMEs. And there you have to do the platformization. There you have to become an internet company. So nowadays we offer the two types of membership, and they are very complementary. Both of them are absolutely necessary,
Absolutely.
because
Yeah.
these guys very often, the associations very often are those who bear some Also, I would say representativeness, because they have membership with thousands of small medium-sized enterprises. They have a reputation also vis-a-vis their national governments as representative of their sector. They have an important role. So we need these guys to ensure that we, as a European alliance, have the representativeness. We are, considered an established organization which can talk on behalf of the community. We have a democratic bottom-up approach. So our decisions are taken by these guys. But then we need also the real SMEs, because we need people with knowledge. We need people who participate in our groups to give us, ideas and so on. And we need, for instance, we need a lot of people when we do the real lobbying in Brussels. Yep. You need to do events. You need to do a workshop. You need to invite the commissioner or someone to come and speak. But the guy cannot just speak to me.
Yep.
He has to speak to the real SMEs, because they like to see the real entrepreneurs. Maybe the real entrepreneurs are not really aware of all the nitty-gritties of the legislation, right? But you need to bring in the real entrepreneurs. You need to train them. You need to tell them, really, okay, this is more or less what you should be saying. This is okay. This is what the guy wants to hear. And you need to create these stories. You need to show the companies and the real stories, the real entrepreneurs coming from all over Europe, not just from one country, but from all over, because this is how you create your reputation, you create your credibility. They will trust you if you have this real membership. If you don't have it, you say, okay, Sebastiano, it's you say you represent 45,000, but where are the 45,000? Show us the 45,000. Exactly. And so you have to bring in the 45,000. That's why we are doing our summit. It's called Digital SME Summit in November, on the 13th of November. And I hope you will come, Andre, and many people will join us. We're going to have commissioners. We're going to have a lot of people. It's here in Brussels, but we'd love to have the real guys. We don't want to have, I know I can fill, we have a room for 200 people. I know I can fill the room with 200 people from the Brussels bubble. But I don't want these guys. These are the lobbyists. The journalists, the people the civil servants, the people who work in Brussels. I know they will, if I open the registration tomorrow, they will fill it in 2 days. I know. But I don't want these guys. I want the real companies to come in, because they are those who are going to demonstrate that we are a real SME association. They are those who will really have an exchange with the politicians, right? And they are those who are never in Brussels. They are those who are everyone, it's a lip service. Everyone talks SME, SME, SME. Every politician, but have they ever seen an SME? I don't know. Okay, so at least not in Brussels. And so we have to bring those real guys to talk to the decision makers.
That is fascinating. And yeah, obviously, if you do represent the interests of that many companies, obviously they would need real stories, real people to tell those stories of what they are actually trying to build and what they need in order to accomplish what they're trying to build. And I believe your membership offerings are exceptional at supporting those efforts. And on this note, I know that your membership is also paid, if I remember that correctly. And if that would be, I think that would be an interesting conversation to have. As you said earlier, you think of yourself more like an internet company rather than a traditional NGO, which, again, fascinating. But that also opens up the conversation about how do you think about revenue and how do you ensure that it is sustainable revenue for your organization. Can you maybe help us understand the pie chart of your yearly revenue? How is that distributed?
Okay. Well, this is a very good question, a very interesting one, because we are, very big as an association in Brussels compared to, the likes, the association, especially those who represent the SMEs, okay? Because the business model is very difficult to sustain, okay? Because it's very clear that, as I said earlier, no SME will ever pay for representation services, or very few, right? And Your competitor, our competitors, are going to be associations representing large companies, okay? And these associations, there's one very known in Brussels, which you may have heard, it's called Digital Europe, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They have, 10 times more budgets than us, 10 times more people. Why? Because their members are the big tech corporations from the Europe, some from US, from China, from everywhere. Okay? They're called Digital Europe, though I would say they are Digital China or Digital US, but they're still called Digital Europe, right? But these are our competitors. And, and so we have to raise funds, create a successful business model,
Mm-hmm.
compete with these guys. Because if you are not the same number, they will just, they will be everywhere and no one will hear our voice. So how do we do that? Uh, and this is what the innovations we have tried to put in the last few years. We started working a little bit differently. The traditional business model of an association is, in my opinion, deemed to fail because especially with the small, you can convince big companies to pay. You can convince them to pay a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
They pay 10, 20, 50,000 euros per year, even 100,000 euros per year to an association. It's not a problem. They will see the value of that money. Okay, each company will see the value of that money. An SME will not even give you €1. Okay,
Yep.
this is the difference. So how do you convince them? As I said earlier, you have to build a value offering, which is not just a representation, it's not just advocacy or lobbying, whatever you want to call it, because that's not going to work. You have to create a number of other services around it so that it makes sense for them. And then you have to differentiate a little bit your sources of income, and namely what we started to do a few years ago was, okay, we saw a lot of consultancies working in Brussels, being extremely well organized and professional in getting contracts from the European institutions. So sometimes these consultancies were taking contracts for, I don't know, studies or research which were, about topics which are very relevant for us. Topic about how do you grow the digital SMEs in Europe, or how do you transfer the skills to SMEs in Europe, or whatever. Very much relevant to what we do. It's okay. Why do we have to? Every time these consultancies were winning the contracts, then the day after they were coming to me, Sebastian, we have to do an interview with you. Yes, okay. And where is the money? You getting €1 million to do this study, and I get nothing. And every single second day, I get an email saying, Sebastiano, you're invited to an interview. It's a very important interview because the interview will feed the study for the European Commission, whatever. But okay, but you are getting €1 million. You're getting a big contract, and I'm not getting anything. And you are extracting value from me every second day, and I'm not getting anything out of it. And then say another email say, oh, you have to consult. You have to send a survey to your members, to your 45,000 companies. Every one of them should fill in this form, this survey, because it's an important topic. It's going to be very relevant for them. If they don't change this legislation, this is going to kill them. So you have to convince them, Sebastiano, to fill in the survey. Okay, but you're getting paid to do that. And none of these guys, none of these SMEs are getting paid to fill in your survey. So there is something that doesn't work there, right? And so we said, okay, let's organize ourselves. Let's start working as a consultancy. And let's hire clever people and let's go into that business as well. And so we start running for public calls for tenders
Mm-hmm.
and start winning. Okay, and so this is one of the ways we have fought. Okay, and now we are good because now we have a good team and we are on the market and they know us. And when they want to win one of those contracts, they call us. Okay, we want to be in a consortium with you because we know that otherwise it's going to be difficult to win. Okay, so but of course, if you are just alone, if you're a one-man show, it's not going to work. So it took a few years to get to that stage, but now we are there, and so this is a source of funding, which of course matches the one contributes as well as
Mm-hmm.
to the funding which can come from membership. And likewise, we have to sell services, coherently with our identity, with our mandate. We cannot we cannot take money from big companies. We cannot take money especially from big tech. So we have a few constraints, but we try to sell services wherever we can to make sure we have a sustainable business model with a different diversification of sources, which makes us sustainable and this diversification of sources has let us grow in the last years quite steadily, so that we can be a financially viable organization, because you can have all the best. You can be an NGO, as you said, have all the best ideas in the world, but if you don't secure money to be financially sustainable, then you are going to be invisible. Right? So yeah.
But is that majority of the funding coming from membership? Is it coming from tenders? Just the majority of it?
At the moment, I would say the majority of the funding, more than 50%, comes from contracts. Again, contracts with the institutions, especially with the European Commission, funded projects to help SMEs, in their representation. We have, namely, one very important contract, which is paying us to represent the interest of SMEs in standardization. So in the development of new ICT standards, what happens in ISO, IC, or Sensen like in ETSI, the European or International Standards Organization, even in W3C, IEEE, etc. In the standardization organizations, there has been a few years ago a recognition by the European institutions that these standards are developed by industry, but that SMEs are not sufficiently represented in this work. And standards in European legislation are very important because they are used differently from elsewhere, differently from the US or other countries. They are used to demonstrate compliance with legislation. So the European legislator has sometimes given the pen to the standardization bodies to write the specifications. This is in the law, and so they cannot delegate someone else to write the laws or the specifications to comply with the law. They cannot delegate someone else that does not represent all the parties. Okay, so especially a party, the SMEs, which is super important because SMEs represent 98% of all the companies, and if they're not sitting around in the table which is defining the standards, it's a big problem, okay?
Absolutely.
Because you are missing 99% of the stakeholders. So we get a contract to support us representing those guys. So with this money, we can pay experts. We can travel. We can do we can write documents. We can write contributions to standards and so on. So this is a very good source of public funding, which is to do exactly what we should be doing with the private money. But as I said, there is a market failure. So the market of SMEs is not prepared to pay for their representation, not entirely at least. So this is a very good public intervention, so to say. If you like, it's similar in many countries. I don't know the situation in Romania, but especially in the former West European member states, the unions, okay, they are recognized as a public interest, but which worker will ever pay a union enough to, unless they are obliged by the law, they will not pay, right, to represent their interest in the collective bargaining, in the negotiation, and so on. So the unions are very typically either they get mandatory membership fees because every worker has to pay the union because otherwise, or the union is subsidized by the state. And here we have a very similar situation. We are representing a stakeholder which doesn't pay for its own representation, doesn't pay enough for its own representation. So the state is supporting us to make that work because there is the value of that work is for the good of everyone.
I think that that example with the union is, well, not necessarily an analogy, but it's a great way to represent how to think about what you do. But also, I think that also points to something really important. You gather all of your members, all 45,000 of your members in one place, and you actually get them to offer their points of view in one place. That's almost 30 countries, uh, 30 different countries that you gather in one platform to offer their points of view on what should be done. That, dare I say, also gives you the status of the largest operator, ecosystem operator of digital SMEs in Europe, as far as I'm aware. Um, would you consider yourself an ecosystem operator? Would you consider your organization as the operator in this ecosystem of digital SMEs?
Uh, I would say it's a strong statement. Uh, I think we aim to be
Mm-hmm.
the ecosystem operator. Certainly, we are the only organization that does the representation of interest, for sure. Now, working at an ecosystem level probably has a bit more breadth. We are not really a marketplace for transactions among SMEs,
Mm-hmm.
except the collection of opinions and the representation. So, yeah, I mean, perhaps we try to develop to develop into that
Mm-hmm.
in a few years. We are certainly, as I said earlier, we are certainly trying to strengthen this platformization of our work. And we try to become that ecosystem operator. But, okay, I mean, in my opinion, there are very few ecosystem operators, which I would say are the large
Mm-hmm.
online platforms.
Mm-hmm.
The GAFAM, for instance, with the app stores and so on.
Yep.
These are ecosystem operators, in my opinion. If you are at that level, then you can control an ecosystem. If not, yeah, you can try, and as many I would say internet companies, as many startups try to be the next big platform. We also try. I mean, we know this is it's a bet. It's a very difficult thing, and only very few have succeeded until now to become the platforms.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we know what we are trying to do as an NGO, as a non-for-profit organization, is going in that direction.
And as a not-for-profit, and with the hat of, dare I say, a internet company, given that you are trying to balance this dichotomy, that also brings with it the fact that you are in the European Union and you operate under the European Union. That also brings with it a lot of bureaucracy, because that's the reality of any not-for-profit, and especially one that does as many things as you do. Now, on this spectrum between checking all of the boxes and making sure that we are overly bureaucratic and being as fast as possible and as nimble as possible and as agile and able to iterate fast, where would you find yourself on this spectrum? Where would the Digital SME Alliance find itself on this spectrum?
We find ourselves rather on the agile side. I mean, I'm saying this very clearly because this is a discussion we often have also internally.
Mm-hmm.
The only way we can be successful in our market,
Yep.
say, is competing with the other organizations doing lobbying in Brussels, especially those who represent the big companies. We can only be successful if we are fast, if we are agile, if we, act
Absolutely.
very quickly, because we are going to always have a disparity of means of resources. It's
True.
a David against Goliath situation. It's very clear, and so we can only be successful if we are faster than them. And very often I see that also in many other non-for-profit associations. The bureaucracy is also an excuse not to do things, because I cannot do anything because I don't have time to consult my members. I don't have time to do this, to do that. Sure, you can always say you don't have time, and it's a very good excuse. But if we were using that excuse, then we wouldn't do anything. And
Yep.
there's a particular thing we have, which differentiates us from many other organizations, which is that yes, we have our own processes, no bottom-up processes, democratic processes to decide our positions and so on. True. And we certainly maintain that. Even when we know that that process is, sort of taking time, as you said, and making things a bit slower, we have to maintain. And that is something that almost every serious organization has, association has, and have to be credible. Okay,
Yep.
not all of them
Absolutely.
have it, but but differently from the others, we have a very specific thing, which is that the mandate we have from our members is a mandate of trust.
Hmm.
So, an association of big companies, what they would say is, okay, you're members of the big companies, the Amazons, Microsoft, and so on. So they will tell you what to say.
Mm-hmm.
They will dictate your position because they will have experts.
Yeah.
They will have the best experts in the world, the better paid people in the world. We are talking about salaries of 100Ks, 200Ks, 300Ks, just to be the lobbyist of these guys.
Mm-hmm.
So they will be able to tell you exactly what they want your association to say, okay? And your job is going to be to negotiate among the different members, and if you are good, you can find a common ground. In our case, it's a bit a different story because we have a mandate of trust, meaning that we are told by our members, say, Sebastiano, we don't have the money to be in Brussels. We don't have the resources to understand what are the issues which are going to affect our companies. Uh, we cannot analyze all the legislation. So you are our trust people in Brussels. You are the antenna. You tell us
Yep.
what the important issues are. You develop the positions, and we will tell you if they are okay or not. It's not the other way around. You see the difference,
Yep.
okay?
Yep.
So we interpret it this way, the mandate we have. At least this is the way I've always done, and it did work, okay? And like that, I know I have a strong mandate and I have quite some autonomy. Because if you cannot react in the public discussion fast enough, you're not going to be able to counter the arguments of other. If every time you have to run a 3-week consultation, every single sentence you say, okay, it's not going to work. So you have to consult your members, you have to have solid grounds, you have to know, you have to be able to pick up the phone in a time if you are unsure that you are saying something sensitive. So you have to have the trust, but you also have to have a strong mandate to be able to raise your hand and say, no, sorry, we disagree because we think this and that. So
Yep.
it's a difficult path sometimes because it's very narrow,
Yeah.
but
Exactly.
the only way you can do it.
Yeah, and it's a really hard balancing game to do because, again, you want to move quickly and you do have the trust, but also the industry per se, it takes a while in order for the processes to develop and for the legislature to actually happen and so forth. Um, on this note, in your organization, what's the time horizon you think in terms of given your specific industry of advocacy? So previously we talked about the fact that some SMEs might not feel like that's appropriate for them because they think that laws will have an impact in 5 or 10 years. And also you said previously that you're more like an internet company that tries to be fast, try to move as quickly as possible to be nimble and to make decisions quickly in order to stay in this space. So With that context, whenever you make decisions, as an organization, uh, what's the time horizon that you think in terms of how long into the future? Is it a quarter? Is it 1 year? Is it 3 years? Is it 5 years? How do you look at the time horizon usually?
Well, we have to have different time frames,
Yeah,
different scales.
yeah.
We have to have a long-term strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Uh, we have, in fact, a manifesto which was approved by our members in 2019, which was the manifesto for the future of Europe's economy, digital economy, which was coincide with the European Parliament election. So there is a mandate of the European Parliament, and this manifesto was supposed to cover that mandate, no?
Mm-hmm.
That legislation. Uh, and so we have a long-term cycle, so to say, okay? And then we have a much faster cycle, which is interactions that are quite quick
Mm-hmm.
and can be done on a daily basis, because we have to be part of a public conversation which evolves, the political conversation, if you like, which evolves very, very fast.
Absolutely.
Because you cannot, and you don't want to be, commenting on every single thing. You're not that type of organization. But you know, whenever it is relevant, you have to be quick. You have to be able to issue your statement. You have to interact with the others, and that happens on a much faster time frame.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that's something you learn to manage over the years, and you learn to navigate that narrow line we talked about earlier, from between being really quick but also upholding the things that matter. And you have definitely offered value to this space. You have obviously offered a value to this industry over the course of over a decade. You have been in business, so congratulations on that. And I think it's relevant for all of us to maybe for you to share what's the toughest thing you learned about this space, about this industry, about this ecosystem over the decade that you have worked in it.
Well, the most difficult and most challenging thing is that you cannot go out and say that you are the voice of SMEs, and you cannot expect you're going to be alone. You cannot expect you're not going to have competitors,
Mm-hmm.
and which is fine. What is really tough is the fact that you will have competitors, and most of your competitors will be organizations which have much more money than you,
Yep.
and which are actually paid by your worst enemies, by mainly the big tech companies, to claim they speak on behalf of SMEs. We have a bunch of organizations, especially here in Brussels, which are very well paid, very active, very visible, which claim to represent SMEs, okay, or startups in the tech sector. And we know, there is a lot of information about it, that they are actually on the payroll of big tech.
Hmm.
Okay, we have names of at least 4 organizations which have been already accused publicly of the name is called big tech astroturfing. There have been articles, even recently, one on Bloomberg and on several other newspapers. There have been letters signed by members of parliament asking to ban such organizations from the European Parliament. However, even though some people know there have been public, accusations and so on, still these organizations are very well funded.
Yep.
They're very well connected. They have much more, much better funding than us, frankly, and a lot of knowledge which come from, again, the experts from big tech. And so we cannot afford to monitor every single meeting, every single place, every single statement they will do. Sometimes they will even talk to our own members. They will send very nice, perfectly drafted letters saying, okay, if that legislation passes that way, the SMEs are going to have very negative consequences. And if you read and you don't know the topic, you say, but they are right, we should sign this letter. And they circulate this letter, say, okay, we are asking for signatures to these joint letters to defend the interest of SMEs. And sometimes our own members call me and say, Sebastiano, what is this? We don't know this organization. They seem to have arguments which make sense, but do you agree or do you not agree? I say, no, sorry, don't sign that letter. It's very dangerous if you do. But of course, very often they will call me. They will ask me. But we cannot monitor every single place that these guys go.
Absolutely.
Okay? And this is what is really the most frustrating thing. Then if you go and check the website, you will see they have, maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 SMEs are their members, and these SMEs are obviously, providers of or clients of, of Amazon and so on. So, but and you have to go and check and look where the money comes from, and if you do the proper research, you will find where the money comes from, right? The problem is that politicians sometimes are very lazy. They don't do it, and this is a scandal, to be honest with you. And they engage with these guys. Okay? Not all politicians, not all civil servants, but some do. And they have all the means to do their due diligence and to check who they are talking to, and they don't.
This is all a very, very interesting space, and this is one of the most insightful conversation that we have so far. I deeply appreciate that, Sebastiano. On this show, we do have a tradition. Before I let you leave, I have to ask you this question. In the ecosystem that you're a part of, if you could remove just one boundary, no questions asked, if it would be completely possible to do, no questions asked, if you could remove just one boundary, which one will it be and why?
Yeah, okay. Boundary. I think I spoke about trust because a lot of what we are doing is based on gaining the trust from organizations. And one thing I've seen, one boundary, one limitation that I've seen to that is that people tend to trust a little bit more, people coming from the same culture, from the same country. So there tends to be a little bit of an issue in building trust when you are not someone from the same culture, from the same country.
Oh.
We work at European level, so we have members from all countries, and especially when you think about the largest countries, Germany, France, Italy, whatever, you see that in each of those cultures, which are going to be particularly, in those countries are going to be particularly influential, of course, when you go to a European, of course, you can imagine Germany is going to be more influential than Luxembourg. There is nothing you can do about it. It's in the things. And you need to get the trust from each of the nationals, the people from each of these countries. And naturally, some people will be will find it very, even though you say, okay, but you represent European interests. Yes, okay, Sebastian, but you're Italian, therefore you're going to represent Italian interests. No, I'm trying to represent European interests, German interests, French interests, wherever. And they will trust me. If I was French, if I was German, they will trust me more. So it did take me a lot of time to gain the trust of people who tend to have a bit of prejudice, stereotype. An Italian will not trust a German, a German will not trust an Italian, a French will not trust someone from, I don't know, from Poland. There is always a little bit this cultural atmosphere, cultural connotation in our work, which tends to be difficult. Of course, I survived many many members, many boards, many presidents from different countries, and so I did manage to get the trust from all the people around us. But it's not always been easy. With some people, it has been much more difficult than with others. I've learned to work with different cultures, and definitely I like Europe because we are very, very different and also very, very similar in a lot of respects. But it's nice to see that every culture, every country has their own specificities, and unless you really try to understand those, you will never get the trust of the different people.
Absolutely, and that's something that I would have never thought of. But you are absolutely right, because that is the basis of everything, not only that we do in advocacy work, but also everything we do in general in business, and the trust that we need to continue to be able to continue our partnerships and our business relationships, and generally our relationships with the people here. But that is also the greatest opportunity that we have here, the fact that we can build trust, and if we have that trust, amazing things can happen in this space. And I always love this question because I get the most insightful of answers always. But with that being said, Sebastiano, it's been an absolute pleasure. I learned so much from this conversation. It was exceptional. And now I have to ask you, where do you like to send people?
Well, the best thing is if your audience is an entrepreneur or a company, someone working for an SME, I would say go to digitalsme.eu, and there's a button, click for membership, either for an SME or from an association, a hub, a cluster. With that, you'll get a lot of opportunities. You get to represent yourselves better, but at the same time, you'll get access to funding, access to networking, to partners, and so you'll be part of the European family of digital SME. This is what really I'd like to see, a much larger family, and I'd like to invite your audience to join us.
We will make sure to have those details down below in the description. We'll also have the contact information for Sebastiano, and I so very much thank you for your time. It was an absolute pleasure to have this conversation, and I thank you for listening. Stay connected, Internet people. See ya.
You've been listening to the Audacious Ecosystem, the show where we learn together what it takes to make an ecosystem great from the leaders in the organizations around us.